Hey everybody, it's been a minute. I haven't posted in like a month. I've been on a very long road trip, and the biggest part of that trip was because of bereavement, because my stepmother passed away, and I knew it was coming, so a lot of it was already in the works. I didn't know exactly what day she would pass, but I was ready with my truck having a fresh oil change so that I could go on my road trip. I had already gone on visits to see her while she was doing better, but yeah, it's one of those things where you can't just when you know somebody's gonna pass away sometime within the next year, and they've already exceeded all of the estimates. It's like, how much of your life can you just spend in a holding pattern? So I was not there in the vicinity when she passed away, and some of the circumstances of her death involved COVID, and that being the final circumstance of her life. But she already was passing away from her lung being rejected after her second lung transplant. So this was like her third set of lungs. But it was just like one big one, because apparently when they do lung transplants now, they can just do one from the donor and like save two people. But she had her first transplant reject and then got another one, and then she was just too old for another surgery. So, but at the end, she got COVID, and it finished her off. And the causes of death, as they're listed on her death certificate, number one was pneumonia from COVID. And I would say number one cause was actually a tiny bug in Panama, which carried Chagas disease, which started the whole process of her needing a lung transplant in the first place. But the acute reason at the end was the COVID infection. But she was like so close to death's door that I already had my oil change in place and was ready to drive out there before I learned that she got COVID. But yeah, I got to say goodbye to my mom with video chat. And that's a situation that a lot of people have had to have in this pandemic. So she was in the hospital room. My sister, her daughter, and her sister, Tia Gladys, and my niece, they were all in the room with her, gowned up and everything, with the mask and everything. And it took a while for them to let her husband, my father, in the room, because he tested positive for COVID, and that just that doesn't work well with hospital protocols. So in the end, he was there when she passed away. He was in the room, but he was the only one. Everybody else had gone home. But on the day that she passed away, I was able to speak to her and tell her I loved her. But So that all happened, and then I went on my road trip. And I took my sweet ass time because I'm one of the only people I know that hasn't had COVID. And I was just wanting it to like burn through all the family members before I got there, you know? So I didn't go right away because she's already gone. And there were other circumstances to this that she did not want a funeral. And she did not want any services of mourning, no wake, no masses, no celebration of life. From what I hear, she had been pretty devoutly Catholic most of her life, and because of her not living in accordance with all the Catholic laws, like don't get remarried, the priests were not as responsive to her needs towards the end of her life, and also she was not going to be able to be buried in the cemetery where she wanted to be, right next to my late sister. So she didn't want anything. She was really bitter about that. So she made her decision. But the point of all this, and I know from the community that I've been in that 10 years ago this would have been fodder for any troll to maybe dig some information out of my life and throw it back at me, but I'm not really afraid of stuff like that anymore. So I can tell this story because I think it needs to be told. Against her wishes, the family that was alive, we're the ones that are alive, we wanted some of the closure of having an obituary. So we worked one up, and it was pretty basic. And I was looking at the local paper to put it in. And this was in Wisconsin. And so I looked at the Wisconsin State Journal. I go online, and I've already got the whole thing typed up, written out. I've already got the photo that we want to use. And I start doing it, and I look at the price. I was like, holy shit. And I discussed it with the other people at the table, one of which being my sister, one's my dad. And it was quite the sticker shock. In order to put a print ad in the Wisconsin State Journal with just words, they wanted $750. And to include her picture, they would have bumped it up to over $900. And my father, he went on Nextdoor, that app that he likes to use, and he posted about that, and that post went about as viral as anything he's ever done. Like, it got cut off after 100 responses to him, but it was amazing how many other people had run into this problem of, holy shit, that's a lot of money to be charging people who are mourning, and when people die, it's not like everyone all of a sudden has money because they died. In this case, she was not eligible for life insurance or anything, so there's nothing that like paid out at the end of her death. And people were actually spending money to come in to visit family, after she passed. And it was like a lot of extra money that was being spent, in this time. And people weren't working, they were taking off because they were mourning. And like how a newspaper could justify $900+ for an obituary listing to go out in the paper. It was just, it seemed like extortion of people who are going through, a regular life event. And I started to think about it, like, the only reason why I would ever buy the newspaper would be if there was an obituary for somebody that I liked that was in it, or somebody that I knew had something big that happened in that paper. There's nothing else, no other reason for me to buy a newspaper anymore. And so that's their only time that they're ever going to get any money out of me, and they're trying to make the most of it. And when I said that across the table, when I was just looking at my laptop and trying to, find a place to have it printed, everyone unanimously decided, no, don't pay that, right? And I would have the money to pay something like that, but on principle, no one wanted me to pay that. I feel that principle too, but like everyone else even was like just in sticker shock about that. And so I found another option, which was the website legacy.com, which you probably have, by now anyone watching this video has probably seen an obituary on legacy.com. But their pricing was far more reasonable. It was a little more than $100. I think it was like $130 something. But I got something up there. I was able to send it to family members that needed an obituary or some sort of proof, like the death certificate or something, to show their employers for reasons of using bereavement leave, or instead of using like accrued paid time off, or just taking FMLA leave, stuff like that. And it's like, I'm not even sure the legality of employers asking for proof during that stuff, but it's really handy to have an obituary for that purpose. And a lot of people thank me because they were thinking that they were going to have a hard time finding any proof of the reason why they were taking off, because they needed that. So it, even though it was not really in line with my stepmother's wishes, it was kind of needed for the living. And so it's up there. And yeah, I don't know if it's a sign that inflation has taken over so much that I'm just getting sticker shock on everything, and everything costs more, and I should just try to make more money to accommodate for that, even though jobs don't want to pay more money, but it seems like everywhere you turn, things are, more than double what they used to be. And some of the people I've talked to about this actually thought that obituaries should be free. That was where their principles were. I thought, even with it being like the biggest newspaper in the state, I thought it would be around $150. That's where my mind was. as far as what the price should have been. That's what I thought it would be. And it was not. So yeah, I made this whole video just really wanting to share the cost of an obituary. And I want to know from you guys in comments how much you think an obituary should cost. I mean, it's one of the only sources of revenue I think a newspaper has when people don't want to subscribe anymore. Besides advertising, but it's like it's a moment that you shouldn't be attacking people for extra costs. It's just, and having never come across this as an a la carte thing, because usually when somebody has like a burial and like a showing at a mortuary, there's this giant bill. It's tens of thousands of dollars, and somewhere in that bill they handle this. They actually sit down with the family and write it out with them, and like you get like somebody editing your obituary. Like I wrote most of this and got feedback from those other family members. So like we got none of that help, and still it cost that much money for an obituary. And maybe the other funerals that I was privy to the expenses of had these costs rolled up into the mortuary costs, and so I didn't notice them being so high before. But damn, log into whatever local paper you have and click on obituaries and like list an obituary and just look at the price for me. And if you don't have any other comment about what you think the price should be, just give me the price of your local paper, because maybe it's just that paper that was extorting people in their time of sadness. I get a little bit more prone to snap at things like that when I'm dealing with something that's so connected to me emotionally. If I think someone's trying to fuck with me over the death of my stepmother, ooh, and so this one thing is like, it's been following me since I looked it up and I was trying to place the ad, and then my whole road trip back, and I'm like, it's wrong. It is so fucking wrong. And I feel like they need to be shamed for it. Like I maybe need to like look up all the prices in all the major papers and make some sort of graph and like make a meme out of it. Which places cost you the most to announce the death of your loved one. Well, if you made it this far, thanks for listening. Talk to you soon.